You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and I am joined by Brian Smith, the Florida football scout, and we're going to talk a little bit recruiting with official visit happening this weekend. But first, LinkedIn is the college recruiting sponsor across the Locked On Podcast Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. So, Brian, interesting weekend. Obviously, June is official visit month, and people are going around everywhere. Mario Nash last week was in, I think, Clemson. This week he's at Ole Miss. He's going to do LSU. He's going to do Mississippi State. This is a big visit for Ole Miss because skill position-wise, there's seemingly a lot of players that are interested. This is that tackle that Ole Miss needs to land.
Nash is the kind of guy that can really set your offense up because quarterback doesn't make passes complete if he's sitting on his butt after getting tackled in the backfield. So Nash is really good, man. I saw him at the Under Armour event in Atlanta earlier this year. I thought he was the best tackle there, and he was going up against the best overall collection of D linemen in one camp in the country. I think this is a player that can play pretty early. Very fundamentally sound. He's over 280 pounds already. He'll enroll at about 300. He can play pretty early at Ole Miss and a lot of other schools.
Just a comp thing. And like I said, he's really talented, even though he's like a 3-star on some sides and he's 4 stars on other and all of that. But obviously Laramie Tunsil was an alien. I'm going to start there. But where does Mario Nash sit athletically on the Laramie Tunsil scale?
Tunsil was a bigger bodied kid. They moved similar, but Larry was just bigger. I would say I'd give him the edge because of the size, but like the lateral quickness is really rare because he sets his butt low. He's got good flexibility in his lower extremities, and he can deliver a punch to whether it's thwarting a guy in a pass rush or if he's in a run blocking situation and he's helping double team, whatever it is, he's got a lot of power. A lot of athleticism comes from that ability to bend. This is a top-notch guy. He just plays at a random high school in Mississippi, so doesn't get attention like he probably should. But I think Nash is one of the most athletic offensive linemen in the country.
Yeah, I really, whenever you look at video of him, it kind of pops off the tape, his athleticism, just the way he moves. It's honestly, you know what it reminds me of watching him? He's sitting there guarding and doing all the movements. It reminds me of like 1982 football whenever 230-pound guys were playing offensive line.
Yeah, because they just used athletes. It was different. Were you a tough guy? Did you want to be a team player? Worked with the other 4 players to make a good unit? Now, of course, individually, they're looking for guys that are just so big. Like a 340-pound offensive lineman in the SEC is like, oh, okay. Well, he's just another guy. It's insane until you're down on the field and see these guys warming up before a game. It doesn't hit you just how large they are, but he is a little bit more traditional. He's going to have to add weight instead of lose weight, like some of the kids Georgia brings in. One of the kids Georgia just signed was 390 when they signed it. I mean, that's insane. But nonetheless, that's a different style. Nash is going to gain 15, 20 pounds, but he's going to come in more technically sound, great feet, and he can pass protect on the edge. Never have enough of those guys.
Yeah, really good player. Now, let's change the subject real quick. Winston Watkins is taking an official visit this weekend in Ole Miss. He's from Fort Myers, Florida. You're obviously the Florida football scout. He is a 5-star on Rivals, and it's another situation where his ratings kind of go all over the place. But what do you know about Winston Watkins?
I've known him since he was in 8th grade. He was a very highly recruited player, very athletic in the slot. You will not out-technique him. His advanced skills kind of stand out. He's from a football family. He was at IMG for a while. This is a guy that's going to come in ready to be a slot receiver and compete from day one. Not the biggest guy in the world. He's probably 5'10" or something like that. But for his size, he's yoked. He's built like a boxer. He is trained to do nothing besides play football for as long as he can remember. And he's a guy that, like, when I'm at an event that he's there, I don't even scout him anymore. There's no need. There's no need. We already know what he can do. I am asking him about other kids. That's a good sign.
Yeah. Just because I like to do comps and everything, how would he compare to Caden Lee, for instance?
Oh, that's a good comp because they're both, SWAT guy. And I know Lee's really athletic. I don't know which one's twitchier. That'd be a really good competition. They're both fast and they both take their craft very, very seriously. I would say Lee's slightly taller, but they're the same kind of guy with precision with their hands and their routes. And they're going to eat you up in one-on-ones out of the slot. So Lee might be more likely to play outside, but I think they're both best in the slot.
And if you want to look at it, one of the slot receivers that Lane Kiffin recently has made some hay with is Elijah Moore. He's from St. Thomas Aquinas. What's that comparison? Is there any comparison there?
Well, that's another kid that can make guys miss at any time. St. Thomas Aquinas kind of speaks for itself. If you don't know who that program is in high school football, if you do a Google search, you'll find it real quick. State championship after, I forget how many in a row they won, 4 or 5. It's ridiculous, but they win every year because they have precision in coaching. They treat it like every practice is like an NFL practice. Every little thing, like the head coach gets on the players if they do not, and I mean this literally, clap at the same time. Guys have to run. Like it's a big deal. It's very, very systematic, and they have elite players that buy in. That'll be a kid that comes into college ready to play from a technical standpoint again. That is so important, and that's why I've never been to a St. Thomas Aquinas practice without an elite football program having one of their assistants on the sidelines too. Literally never been to one that didn't have one.
Yeah. And are they going to repeat again this year?
I mean, if they don't, it would be the first time in like 5 years they didn't win it. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. They're always
yeah. By the way, Keon Young did commit to Ole Miss over the weekend. I saw it. They're playing the Winter Haven Blue Devils down here in Winter Haven, so I'll be able to see that play. But they just got a transfer quarterback. I don't know if your finger is on that pulse or not, but what do you know about him?
The quarterback that was at Lakeland had transferred the year before. He's a big arm kid that had transferred over from Palmetto. I don't know if there's been more transfers. I don't know. I haven't checked on that in the last week or so, but as you know, living in Polk County, that's the Wild West.
Yeah, it pretty good. I'm looking forward to seeing that. And if for some reason, if Ole Miss can get a commitment from Winston Watkins, I'll be looking to see how close Fort Myers gets to my area. Or what is it, First Baptist or something like that, whatever the school is.
It's a small school, but they're pretty good.
Yeah. So I'm looking to see how close they get. Last year, I forget his name. He committed to Ole Miss and signed with Ole Miss. He was a Wake Forest commit. He's from Tampa.
Oh, yeah. He's from Clearwater.
Clearwater Catholic. Yeah, I was looking. It's like Sebring was as close as it got to me. And,
yeah, that's not very close.
Yeah. So it was pretty interesting. But, hey, Winter Haven High School, that's 3 minutes up the road. I can go see that one.
There you go. That's a good game.
Yeah, it should be fun. And it's also a pretty great nickname game. And we talk about this over and over. The Lakeland Dreadnoughts and the Winter Haven Blue Devils. That's a solid nickname game.
There you go, man. There you go.
All right. Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. When we come back, we'll ask Brian the top 5 wide receivers in Ole Miss history. But first, Gametime is the place to get your NBA Finals tickets. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Views from all the seats in the venue, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation, job protection, job loss protection. They can handle you on the customer service side of things. They just take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down all the volume with that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you each and every single day to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. All right, Brian, you're on the hot seat. Today, we are doing the top 5 greatest Ole Miss wide receivers. And again, everybody watching this video, Brian Smith is not an Ole Miss guy, so his answers might be a little bit different. I personally enjoy that because it gives me another perspective outside of the fan base that we normally have. So we're going to count it down from 5 to 1, and we'll see what we can do. So we'll start with number 5.
I think that I would go Elijah Moore. Obviously, he was just a guy that was just fun to watch. He is the modern guy that's a pain in the butt to guard. And I don't remember his stats or anything like that, but he was not a lot of fun for teams in one-on-one situations. Only played there a couple of years, but he was really good. He's my number 5. A guy that maybe some other people might have had higher. I don't know. Dante Moncrief is a guy that I think is really good. He had a lot of quickness, but he was a good route runner, a little more of a traditional receiver. And I think that's a guy that probably deserves a little more credit than what he got during his time in the SEC. The guy that I'll never forget the sad injury he had is Laquan Treadwell. I think his career at Ole Miss kind of got truncated just because of that injury, but obviously he made it to the NFL. Man, he was strong. He could block. He could run a reverse. He didn't care if it was a screen or a bomb. He could do a little bit of everything. He was a heck of a player. And then the two that everybody has, I don't know which order you would have it. I've got A.J. Brown 2 and Metcalf 1. It's debatable. They obviously played together, and as a tandem, they were ridiculous. I think Metcalf's the better pure athlete. Brown might be the better football player, but Metcalf's the more spectacular player.
Yeah, and for not Ole Miss fans, DK Metcalf was injured for the better part of half of his 3 years at Ole Miss. So that's why AJ for me would get the tiebreaker there, because he played more in college.
Right.
But professionally, DK, yeah, he's just a freak. Yeah, he's just a freak.
235 pounds, and he runs like he's $170.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, literally tried to qualify for the Olympics sprinting.
Yeah, 235.
Yeah.
Those are Bo Jackson, Herschel number kinds of weights to be running, like literally. That's not a normal human being, brother.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I guess the Arizona Cardinals picked off a pass from Seattle on the goal line, and they were about to take it 100 yards, and DK Metcalf just walked down the defensive back before he got to the end zone. I was like, yeah, that's my wife's favorite play in the NFL period.
It's just hilarious because nobody else is going to do that at the same size as that DB, because NFL DBs can all run. You know what I mean? Like they got to, they wouldn't make it. He beats a guy that he doesn't even have the head start, and he weighs 30, 40 more pounds.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's something else. But that's a solid list, Brian. Next week, whenever we do whatever we're going to do, it might not be something you're familiar with, but you were able to put that one together pretty good, bud.
Thank you.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Brian Smith, the Florida football scout, joining us this week like he always does. I will see you next week, buddy.
Thank you very much, sir.